Thank you for the music, the songs I'm singing. Thanks for all the joy they're bringing.
He has spent decades hiding behind the music, smiling for cameras, playing sellout concerts, and accepting the applause of millions, all while keeping his most personal truths tightly locked away. But on the night of May 27, 2025, something shifted. Standing in a packed arena in London, 78-year-old Benny Andersson looked across at the woman who had once shared his life, his stage, and his heart, and the world finally saw what had always been there. Not bitterness, not regret, but something far more powerful and far more honest. This is the story of Benny Andersson, a man who helped create one of the greatest bands in music history, a man who lost love, rebuilt his life, and kept moving forward, and a man who, at 78, has finally shown the world the truth about her, about Frida, about their bond, and about what really still exists between them after all these years. Stay with us. Because this story is not just about music. It is about two people, one extraordinary journey, and a truth that took over 4 decades to be fully told. Benny Andersson was born on the 16th of December, 1946, in the Väsastan district of Stockholm, Sweden. His father Gösta was a civil engineer, and music ran deep in family's blood. Both his father and grandfather played the accordion. And when Benny was just 6 years old, they placed one in his small hands and introduced him to Swedish folk music, traditional melodies, and the popular Schlager style. From that first moment, something clicked. His earliest musical loves were wildly different from each other. The smooth European sounds of Katarina Valente and the raw, electric energy of Elvis Presley's jailhouse rock. But it was the B-side, Treat Me Nice, that caught his ear most, simply because it featured a piano. That detail tells you everything about Benny Andersson. Even as a child, he heard what others missed. By the age of 10, Benny had his own piano and was teaching himself to play. School could not hold his attention. He left at 15, not because he was lost, but because he had already found something that mattered more. He began performing at youth clubs, soaking up the local music scene, and writing his first compositions. It was during this time that he also met his first girlfriend, Christina Granville, with whom he had 2 children, Peter in 1963 and Helen in 1965. In early 1964, Benny joined a group called Elverket Spelmanslag, a playful name meaning the Electricity Board Folk Music Group, a nod to their electric instruments. It was his first real band experience, and it planted the seed of something bigger. In October 1964, Benny's career took a significant leap when he joined the pop band the Hepstars as their keyboardist. Within months, in March 1965, the group broke through with their hit Cadillac, and Benny's life changed almost overnight. The Hepstars became one of the most famous Swedish pop bands of the entire decade, and Benny was their engine, not just on keys, but as their main musical force and a genuine teen idol. At first, the band played cover versions of international hits. But Benny had a creative restlessness that could not be contained. He began writing original songs for the group, delivering them hit after hit. No Response, Sunny Girl, Wedding, Consolation, and She Will Love You among them. Each track proved that his instinct for melody was not just good, it was exceptional. Then, in June 1966, Benny met Bjorn Ulvaeus. The two began writing together almost immediately, and their first collaboration was a song called Isn't It Easy to Say. It was a modest beginning to what would become one of the most successful songwriting partnerships in the history of popular music. It was also through music that Benny's personal world began to shift in ways he never could have predicted. At the 1969 Melody Festival, Sweden's Eurovision selection contest, Benny met a fiery, talented singer who would change the course of his life entirely. Her name was Annie Frid-Lyngstad. The world would come to know her simply as Frida. When Benny met Frida in 1969, there was an immediate connection. She was bold, warm, and gifted in ways that matched his own creative intensity. They began a relationship that quickly became serious, and by 1971 they were living together. Around the same time, Bjorn had met and married Agnetha Fältskog, a singer whose voice was already famous across Sweden. Two couples for extraordinary talents and a chemistry that no one had quite planned for. Their first real performance together came in April 1970, almost by accident. on a trip to Cyprus. All four sang together on the beach for fun, only to find themselves suddenly performing an impromptu concert for United Nations soldiers stationed there. It was informal and unscripted, but those who were present said the energy between them was unlike anything they had seen before. They named their early stage act Festfolk, which roughly translates to both party people and engaged couples. It debuted in November 1970 in Gothenburg. The reviews were mostly indifferent, except for one song, Hedge Gamla Man or Hello Old Man, which became their first real hit together, reaching number 5 on the sales charts and holding the number 1 spot on the Swedish radio chart for 15 weeks, WY 1972. The four were inseparable both personally and professionally. Their breakthrough moment came when they entered the Melody Festival with the song Ring Ring, produced with a powerful, layered sound that would become their signature. Though it only placed third, the song became a major hit across several European countries. A star was being born. Manager Stig Andersson saw what was coming. He gave them a name, ABBA. The first letter of each member's first name, Agnetha, Bjorn, Benny, Annie Frid. It was simple, memorable, and perfectly suited to what they were about to become. In 1974, ABBA entered the Eurovision Song Contest with Waterloo, a glam rock-infused pop track that was impossible to resist. On the 6th of April 1974, they performed in Brighton, England, and won. The victory did not just give them a trophy. It opened every door in Europe simultaneously. Waterloo reached number 1 in 9 countries and broke into the American top 10, peaking at number 6. But the real explosion of success came with what followed. SOS, Mamma Mia, Fernando, Dancing Queen. These were not just songs, they were cultural moments. Dancing Queen topped charts across the globe, including the United States, and became the soundtrack of an era. The 1976 album Arrival took their reputation to an entirely new level. By 1977, they were launching their first major world tour, filling arenas in Norway, across Europe, and then in Australia, where the reception bordered on hysteria. The Australian tour was so intense, so overwhelming, that it was later captured in ABBA, the movie. The demand for them was unlike anything Scandinavia had ever produced. Through all of this, Benny and Frida were living inside one of the world's most watched love stories. Two musicians, deeply in love, writing and performing music that moved millions, all while navigating the enormous pressure of global fame. For a time, it all seemed to work. But pressure has a way of finding the cracks. ABBA was always more than a band. It was two real-life couples, Agnetha and Bjorn, Benny and Frida. Fans loved this. The idea that the same people singing love songs on stage went home together at night gave the music an authenticity that felt rare. It made the songs more real, because for the people singing them, Benny and Frida had been together since 1969. They had moved in together, shared studios, toured the world, and created music that would outlast generations. Yet they did not marry until October 1978, when ABBA was at the absolute height of its global power. It was a moment of commitment made in the eye of a storm. Just 2 years later, in 1980, they separated. Benny told reporters they were still friends. He kept the explanation brief and guarded. But the real story, as it so often does, came out gradually. He had met another woman, television producer Mona Norclett, and married her in 1981. Frida, for her part, spoke with more openness. She explained that they had simply grown out of each other, that after long and painful conversations, going their separate ways became not just a choice, but a necessity. There were tears. There were long discussions. But there was no way back. The marriage ended, and with it, something fundamental in ABBA shifted. Bjorn and Agnetha had already divorced in 1979, just 1 year before Benny and Frida. By 1982, both couples were finished. And so, quietly and without any formal announcement was ABBA. Their final single was Under Attack. Their last television appearance together was on a Swedish show on the 19th of November, 1982. On the 11th of December 1982, they performed together for the very last time via a live broadcast to the UK. The curtain fell. An era ended. When the band dissolved, Benny did not slow down. He and Bjorn continued their songwriting partnership and went on to write the acclaimed musical Chess in the 1980s. They produced music for other artists, developed what would eventually become the global phenomenon Mamma Mia, and quietly accumulated creative legacies that stood entirely on their own, separate from the ABBA story. Frida's path was harder. She moved first to London, then settled in Switzerland. In 1992, she married Heinrich Rutzer-Reuss, Prince of Plauen, becoming Her Serene Highness Princess Annie Frid of Reuss. But happiness, as it had before, brought its shadow. In 1998, her 30-year-old daughter Lieselotte was killed in a car accident in New York. The following year, her husband the prince died of lymphoma. The grief was immense. Frida withdrew from public life, saying only that her faith carried her through. Benny, by contrast, remained active and visible, composing, producing, appearing at events, and continuing to shape Swedish music culture. But whatever remained between him and Frida stayed private. Carefully, deliberately private. For decades, the idea of an ABBA reunion was the most asked question in pop music. Offers came and went, including a reported $1 billion deal in the early 2000s for a concert series, which all four members turned down without hesitation. The music was too important to reduce to a nostalgic cash grab. Then, in 2018, something changed. All four began talking again. What started as a plan for 2 new songs grew into a full album. Voyage was released in November 2021, becoming ABBA's 9th studio album, and their first new music in nearly 40 years. It debuted at #1 in the UK. The accompanying concert experience, ABBA Voyage, opened in May 2022 at a custom-built arena in Stratford's Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London. Rather than performing live, the 4 ABBA members exist on stage as digital avatars, ABBA-ers, as they appeared in 1979, supported by a live 10-piece band. The production was created in collaboration with Industrial Light and Magic, the visual effects company behind Star Wars, and it became the most talked-about concert experience of the decade. Since opening, the show has welcomed over 3 million visitors and contributed more than £1 billion to the UK economy. But the most significant moment did not happen on the digital stage. It happened in the balcony. On the evening of May 27, 2025, ABBA Voyage marked its 3rd anniversary. The set list had been updated for the occasion, with Super Trooper, The Name of the Game, Money, 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 and Take a Chance on Me newly added to the show. Celebrities filled the arena. Elvis Costello, Guy Garvey of Elbow, Myling Class, Richard Osman, and many others. But nobody in that building was prepared for what happened next. Unannounced, without fanfare, Benny Andersson and Frida Lyngstad appeared together in the balcony. 2 people who had once shared a bed, a stage, a marriage, and one of the most complicated and public separations in music history, standing side by side while thousands of fans erupted in disbelief and emotion. Frida, dressed elegantly in cream, took the microphone first. She looked out at the crowd with genuine warmth and said simply, "Thank you for all your support over the years. It's hard to imagine it's nearly 50 years. Then, with a laugh that lit up the room, she added, "I'm turning 80 this year." The arena shook with applause. Then Benny stepped forward, and instead of speech, instead of careful words about the past or measured reflections on their history, he said, "2 men walk into a bar. A joke. A completely disarming, perfectly timed joke," and Frida burst into laughter beside him. To anyone watching who did not know their story, it might have seemed like a small moment. But to those who understood what these 2 people had been through, the love, the marriage, the separation, the silence of 4 decades, it was anything but small. It was Benny Andersson, at 78 years old, standing next to the woman he had once loved and lost, and showing the world exactly how he felt. Not with tears or grand declarations, but with ease, with warmth, with genuine affection. After the show, the 2 surprised a select group of guests at a private afterparty, where Benny sat at the piano and played alongside Elvis Costello, with Guy Garvey singing. And then Frida took the microphone and sang. Just a few bars. Just enough. The room went very still. Fans who were present described it as one of the most moving things they had ever witnessed. Online, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. "So nice to see them sharing a moment of happiness again," one fan wrote. "Benny is so happy," said another. "Frida is always happy and I live for it." This is the truth Benny has finally confirmed, not through words or interviews, but through presence, through laughter, through choosing, on the 3rd anniversary of a show that has already earned over £1 billion and changed the live music industry forever, to be standing next to Frida. After everything, after the separation, after 4 decades of separate lives, the affection is real, the respect is real, and whatever existed between them once, something of it clearly still does. As 2025 continues, Benny and Bjorn's creative legacy shows no signs of slowing. 2 of their biggest theatrical works, Mamma Mia and Chess, are set to run simultaneous live on Broadway. Mamma Mia returns to the Winter Garden Theater from August 2nd, 2025, through February 1st, 2026. The show, which has already been seen by over 70 million people in 50 productions across 16 languages, continues to prove that the songs Benny helped write are not just popular. They are permanent. ABBA Voyage itself is booked through January 2026, with no signs of slowing. For Benny Andersson, now 78, the journey from a 6-year-old boy with an accordion in Stockholm to one of the most decorated and beloved figures in the history of popular music is one for the ages. But perhaps the most honest chapter of that journey is the one the whole world finally witnessed on a May evening in London. 2 people, a shared past, a crowd of thousands, and a joke that made everything clear. What do you think? Do you believe Benny and Frida's bond truly stood the test of time? And do you think ABBA's personal story made their music more powerful, or did it ultimately tear something irreplaceable apart? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this one, stories that go deeper, tell it straighter, and don't leave anything out, hit that like button and subscribe. We'll see you next time.